Hi, welcome to King Sculpture Studios. This is the first video that I'm going to be posting regarding our virtual studio tour, the East Boulder County Artists. I'm in Longmont, Colorado, and I want to give you a little bit of insight into the bronze sculpture process. So look around here in the studio. I've got a few things set up. I want to talk to you guys about how this process, which is thousands of years old, is still being used today. A lot has changed with tools, but the techniques are very similar. So basically an artist starts with some type of a sculpture. I happen to use oil-based clay, and this is a very, very rough mock-up of something that I'm trying to just work around, get some ideas, and this clay is built on top of an armature. So usually all the sculptures start out as stick figures. So you kind of see just bending wire around, trying to work out a composition, come up with an idea, how to be able to get your story across. And all different kinds of clay might be used. I happen to use something called classic clay. That's what this block of clay down here is. But there's many different types and hardnesses, anywhere from things that are almost as hard as stone or the consistency of carving wood. A lot of times this is used for super fine detail like sculpting jewelry. There's even something called monster clay, which a lot of toy makers have used in the past, even though quite a few of them have moved to digital sculpting. And I would like to talk to you about digital sculpting maybe tomorrow. Here's a few other samples, examples. So basically going to a sculpture store, going online, if you happen to be around Loveland, Colorado, you can go to Sculpture Depot. They can help you out with all different types of products. So an artist works on their sculpture for, days, weeks, months. In some cases, I've set some things aside, come back to them after about 3 years. But again, because it's oil-based clay, it doesn't dry out. After the sculpture is finished, because I can't fire this, it's mostly wax, it would just end up melting away. I end up needing to have a mold made. And again, there's all different kinds of materials that can be used for molds. They can be silicone, urethanes, and that mold starts out as a liquid. It gets painted all over the surface of the sculpture. There's parting lines. There's also keys that are put into it so that the pieces fit back together. And what the artist is doing, or the mold maker, is making a negative image of the sculpture. The original is probably going to get destroyed while that process is being done. And with a negative of the sculpture, obviously this mold is from a different piece of art, something can be poured inside of that mold in order to make another positive. And that positive could be plaster, might be plastic, resin. But if you want to make a bronze copy, limited edition of the original, what you have to pour into that mold is wax. So the wax is melted, poured in there. This is another example of a mold down here. Different kind of material. And for this one, when the wax is pulled out, what you have is pretty much a copy of the original. It's going to have some broken parts. It's going to end up having parting lines that need to be smoothed away. And with this, what the foundry is going to do is make one more negative mold, one that you can actually pour metal into. We can't pour bronze into this because it would just destroy that rubber mold. So this sculpture at the foundry is going to be dipped into a ceramic slurry. About 12 layers will be added to that. And basically what you're doing is building up ceramic around that sculpture and trapping all of that wax inside of it with a lot of detail. So if you kind of imagine that this piece of wax right here is my sculpture and it's now trapped inside of a ceramic shell, then this is going to go into the furnace. And the furnace at the foundry is going to melt away this wax. That's why it's called the LostWax Process. And you end up with another mold that actually will end up having all different details in there, just like the original sculpture. This is just a mock-up one here. And that mold is what's used to pour some bronze into it. The bronze is poured inside, and it's trapped in there. This shell has to be broken off. Once that shell is broken off, you end up with pieces of your sculpture that have to be put back together. That's an example right here. And what you're going to see is all different kinds of sprues and gates, which are other pieces of wax that had to be applied to the sculpture to control how the bronze flows. But you basically have a puzzle. In order to finish off a sculpture, all of these have to be welded back together. And then all of those seams need to be ground down and re-sculpted with power tools in order to make the same kinds of texture, same kind of tool lines that the artist had in their original clay sculpture. So it's a long process. After all of that is done and it's sandblasted, you'll end up with a shinier surface. This bronze is silica bronze. It's mostly copper. It's a little bit manganese to harden it, and also silica or sand to help it to flow better. Once it is polished up, then the patina gets added to it so that you're able to get all different kinds of colors on the sculptures. So an example over here of a finished sculpture, or a couple of them, where they've been welded back together, polished up, color has been added, which is also called patina, and then rebased. This wood base allows you to be able to see the sculpture all the way around, and you won't be able to see any of the weld lines because, again, the metal artist has recreated using a lot of hand techniques to be able to get a limited edition metal sculpture of what started out in clay. I'm also going to walk you guys through the process this week of doing some patina repairs outside. And then also I hope to get to some 3D printing and a little bit of digital design on the computer, and maybe even a little bit of VR. So stay with me. Go ahead and check out the East Boulder County Artists webpage. You'll find all of the links off of my website, bronze.biz. So BRONZE.biz. And much for listening in on this. Hopefully it's helpful, and we'll catch up later. Bye.